editing. Hello, hello, welcome. Hi, Tori, nice to meet you.
Hi there.
And welcome to whoever else joined. I can't exactly tell with your name, but happy to have you here for our Sequin Credit Power Hour. We'll probably give it another minute or so as people are trickling in. But thank you for joining us. We're super excited. We usually have some fun music, but we've been trying to have some, music on in the background and share some of these videos. And we tried to upload them and we got a copyright error on it because of the song. So now we're just trying to be a little cautious, but it's not quite as fun without the music. All right, looks like people are trickling in. Give it a little bit more time. Looks like something's happening in our Sequin Slack as well. What's going on, Simran? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah. So Nithy just put up an amazing post about how many increases she's had in her credit line, and like how she got them, what the methods are, and like they're pretty amazing. Like if anyone has a Wells Fargo card or an Apple card or Capital One, so she's put up like all the methods and all the increases she's gotten, which is about $7,000.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Wow, that's great. All right, cool. Okay, so we are a few minutes in. So let's kick off. Welcome to our Sequin Power Hour. These are always the best parts of my week. And looks like there's some new faces here. Really appreciate you all being here. And just to kind of set the tone, this is a super safe space. Just want to be open to, hearing any questions that you have. If anything comes up during the session, feel free to just chat it in or raise your hand or just unmute and shout it out. But the more interactive it is, the more fun it is always. So with that, super excited about this week's topic. Hi, Nithy. We were just talking about your amazing gains. It's so exciting.
Oh, hopefully it's useful to someone. So I just wanted to share it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Do you want to give like a 30-second of what happened and what your experience was?
Yeah. So actually, it honestly took a lot less time than I expected. That's why I was telling you I was just putting it off. But for the most part, it just took
share with the group what.
Yeah, it only took a few minutes for like the Apple card. I just literally texted them. I think that was my main, just like the Wells Fargo one I couldn't do online. So I did have to call them, but overall it took a lot less time than I thought. And also I thought most of the times they would do a credit, like a hard pull, but at least in my case, they didn't do that at all. They just asked some questions about my income. Just like a few questions, just for checking, I guess, like how things have changed.
Nice. And you keep saying it, but for the folks that don't know here, so Nithy, we're trying to get her credit score up and super boost it. And, one of the great ways to do that is to ask for a credit line increase. And so she and I did a session together a few days ago, and she was asking, my score has kind of been plateaued for a little bit. I've been keeping my utilization low and doing the payoffs, but I haven't seen the gains as quickly. And so, what we like to recommend at that point is actually asking for a credit line increase. And so Nithy did that, and looks like she was able to get, what was it, almost $7,000 of a credit line increase?
Yeah. On one of them, it was a lot. And I honestly almost didn't ask because I was like, I don't even use this card that much. But yeah, I guess they were just fine with that. So yeah, I should have given that context. So thanks, Vrinda.
Yeah, no, it is so awesome that, you were able to either, call your bank and ask, or just do it online, and they didn't have to do a hard pull. So it only positively affects your credit.
Yeah.
So excited to keep up with your journey, and good work
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Thanks so much, Rinda.
Of course, so proud of you. That's amazing. All right, well, so the topic of today's Credit Power Hour is your first credit card and everything you need to know to get started on your credit journey. But another piece that we're going to touch on is, if you already have a credit card and you're looking to apply for your next one as well, there are some caveats and things to know in the credit card application process that tend to trip women up more than men. So, we'll share some of those hacks as well. But, before we get started, would love to kind of hear from the group, not to put you on the spot, someone were you able to make that poll, or no, if not, totally fine. You did. Okay, cool. Yeah, so would love to get a pulse check. Simran will launch that poll, but would love to see, where are the folks in the group here as it relates to the credit card application process. Do you have a card already? Do you have multiple credit cards, or you're looking to apply for your very first card? Where are people here? We'll just give it a few seconds for the poll to launch or to complete. Okay, so it looks like everyone voted, and it looks like we're pretty evenly split between folks. So who here, if you can just raise your hand, who's on their very first credit card here? Like you're looking to apply for your first card. Nice, cool, amazing. And then who has just one card and they might be looking for another card? Awesome. And then who is having, multiple cards and looking for, maybe a third or fourth, or, whatever else. Cool. Sounds good. Awesome. All right. Well, great to see where everyone is at in their credit journeys. And I know we're all at different points and maybe have different frames of reference, but no question is too basic, and no question is too advanced also. So feel free to ask the range of it. I'm sure we'll all have a lot to learn from each other. All right, so just kicking off, we do this every week, but there are some new faces here. So just want to reintroduce Sequin and what we're up to here. We're on a mission to get women the credit we deserve, quite literally. We're a fintech startup. We're very early, in our building process, but what has been so special about this community and this private beta that we're all in is, we're co-creating the future of financial services and centering women for the very first time. And in the spirit of Women's History Month, women could actually be rejected from a credit card without a male cosigner up until 1975, 1974, and then 1975, the legislation was passed that was illegal. But actually, yesterday, the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, sent out a notice that was a reminder that said, hey, banks, issuers, you can't actually discriminate based off of gender or sexual orientation. So it's very much something that, the fact that they have to put that out today means that there's still a problem, and it's so important to know, what your rights are basically, but also how to make the system work for you. So we're backed by some amazing investors. Carrie Schwab of the Schwab family was our first check-in, partnered with Visa and with IDEO, and my personal journey. I worked at Visa for many years building credit cards. Got rejected from the card I built. I just didn't want that to happen to anyone else. So that's why, I'm here and love sharing these moments with you all. So after we get, everyone's first card here, tomorrow is our Sequin payoff day. So just a friendly reminder to make sure you do that. And once you do that, pull your credit score in our Sequin portal. It will not affect your credit. It's a soft pull that does not affect your credit. So check freely, check often, and then log that in the Sequin portal so we know that we can track your credit score gains and congratulate you with our community, and also be able to make sure we know, what cards are right for you whenever the time comes as well. Okay, so topics for today, why credit matters, different options for your first credit card, considerations when choosing the best card for you, tips on the application, and Q&A. Before I get into that, does anyone have any questions, burning questions up front? Really happy to, I've been talking for a little bit, happy to break it up. Any questions to the group? Okay, I think Thunby, is your hand up residually from the, okay, cool, sounds good. All right, no problem. If anything comes up, during the session, just unmute and feel free to ask. Okay, so, oh, I see something in the chat, something come up. Oh, okay. So question in the chat, it's fine if this is out of scope, but as a newbie, what is the benefit of having more than 1 or 2 credit cards? Okay, really great question and a great way to kick off our session. So, disclaimer in all of this, it's really important to note that if you're in any sort of credit card debt or you're having trouble managing credit, getting multiple cards, you're never going to make more on rewards than you are going to be paying in interest. So, if you have any trouble with credit, which is a very real thing, having multiple cards is not going to help you. So disregard everything that I say after this. But if you are using credit responsibly and using it like a debit card, paying it off in full on time, making sure you're having the right card for your spend, there are a lot of great benefits of having multiple cards. One, you can think through, different types of cards for different sort of spending categories. So use this card when you're grocery shopping versus this card when you're thinking about travel. So you can play the points game a little bit and optimize that. So that's on the kind of fun rewards side. But on the credit building side, what having multiple cards does for you is it increases your credit utilization, decreases the percentage, but increases your total available credit. So if you have multiple lines of credit, you're using it responsibly, you have more credit available, and your balance will be a lower percentage of that, which will keep your credit utilization low. So basically, tall and short, that's the explanation, but it'll help you boost your credit, having more access to credit and using a smaller percentage of it. Does that make sense, Lily? Well, thank you for the question. Did that answer okay? Okay, cool. Sounds good. And then question from Thunby is, what is the ideal number of cards? Is there one? So, I get this question a lot. It's more of an art than a science. There's not an ideal number of cards. Personally, I get asked this because I built hundreds of cards when I was at Visa. And people say, what's in your wallet? What's the best card? And I always say, I just have one card. I don't really like playing the game of trying to manage multiple cards and optimize. I know how to do it, of course, but it didn't really feel like optimizing around the edges and churning, people call it, right? Having multiple cards, figuring out when to use the rewards, really trying to maximize those wasn't really a fun game for me, but many people do. So an ideal number of cards is at least one, is what I would say. So just have one card in your name, make sure you're using it responsibly, and go from there. And welcome to whoever just joined us as well. Hi, Cynthia, good to see you.
Hi, good to see you all again.
We're just chatting about doing your first credit card application, but also just best practices for anytime you're applying for a new card, just to catch you up.
Great.
Cool. So, preaching to a choir here because we're all looking for, our next card. But we really advocate using your credit card as much as possible. Understand sometimes you can only pay your rent or some bills through direct deposit, etc. But any charges you can put on your credit card, you'll at least be earning some money back on that in rewards. Of course, the credit building benefits, it's much safer than debit as well. You're much more protected against fraud based off of consumer protections. And then, of course, rewards, I think we're all pretty familiar with. So, these are some of the common fears that we've heard. I really love this slide, just to illuminate some of the voices of women who we've spoken with. one of my original insights that I heard when I was founding Visa was founding Sequin was Visa data that says 70% of women aren't putting spend on credit products. And we're preferring debit, but debit has all the problems we listed before. And I'm just curious, especially for those who are maybe thinking about getting a card for the first time, or even thinking back to when you got your first credit card, is anyone just willing to share, some of the fears that they have? Do any of these resonate? Did any of them resonate? How do you think about it now? Would love to just take 5 minutes to have a little bit of a discussion before we dive into, some of the details.
I can start off. I think that it is kind of just such an intimidating arena to enter because it feels like there are large and permanent consequences if you do something wrong. And that, I think, has really been holding me back.
Yeah, and that's not false, right, Tori? It's true, and it's such a legitimate concern. But what we say at Sequin is we're just trying to help women avoid these avoidable credit mistakes, right? And a lot of times it's just a matter of knowing what the best practices are and being really cognizant of those. And then, of course, some of our tools can help with that as well. But yeah, it's a really real concern. Thank you for sharing.
I think one of my fears, at least lately, that I've been kind of like hesitant because I do want to open like a second credit card really soon, and even like maybe later down the year apply for a car. I feel like I've just been afraid of having too many hard pulls. Like I feel like I've literally recently had like 2 ones and like in like months separate, but I already have 3 for the year, and I'm like, that's already too much.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And honestly, I'm just so proud of you for knowing even the hard pull and being cautious of that, cognizant of that, right? But a best practice around that, Cynthia, and for everyone else is, don't apply too often back to back, and give a little bit of a buffer, right? If you give a 4-month buffer in between you having hard pulls, it's going to be totally fine. So if you just, maybe slow down for a little bit for the next few months, and then it's going to be perfectly fine. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that 4-month buffer helps because I was thinking that I have to like wait years before I can.
No. Yeah. 3-4 months is perfectly fine.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so I just like to keep this, slide in here, but it does answer that question of, why does having multiple cards help? It really helps with this, utilization factor where you're just increasing the amount of your total available credit, which is also what Nithi did when she was asking for credit line increases, right? That's something that is really helpful. And it ties together all of your questions well. Cynthia even asking the how many hard pulls is too much. When you are asking for a credit line increase, that's going to be a hard pull. So make sure that you give yourself that buffer as well. But if it's been a few months, been using the card, you've been doing all the right things, then you're going to be totally fine. And hopefully, Tori, it makes it feel a little bit less scary. Okay, cool. So we're going to start at the very, very basics here. So I want to talk a little bit about a secured card. And this is a great card if you are totally new to credit, if you are, especially if you're an immigrant or you've never been an authorized user on a card, you're completely invisible. It makes a lot of sense to start off with a secured card. And Simran, I'm going to put you on the spot a little as I do with the secured card topic, but if you wouldn't mind sharing A, what is a secured card, and B, how do you use it, and C, some of your amazing results with a secured card. So I'm going to put you on the spot if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So a secured card, and this is what I learned when I entered Sequin, is a card where you put down a security deposit of a certain amount before you get the card. It depends. You can choose your credit line. You can choose a credit You can choose the amount of deposit that you want to put in. And very often they recommend one to you based on your profile. And I got into, so I didn't have a credit presence in the US at all. I had it in India, I had it in Germany, but like never in the US. So it was really helpful for me to start out with a secured card because like I had no credit history whatsoever when I came in. Yeah, and then, so funny story, like when I got the secured card, I was like, I'm making all the payments. And the way I made my payments was I have a very, very low credit line. So I was like, okay, my monthly coffee or 2 coffees come out of my credit card. And like, that's where I was like, okay, I think I'm okay with that. And then I pay it off like using the Sequin method. So like every Friday, just like pay everything off as much as possible at least. And yeah, and then I was like, well, I'm paying everything off. What's happening? Why is my credit score just like stuck at this one number? Nothing's happening, nothing's happening. And then one day I just like randomly checked. I had like a weird feeling. I'm like, let's check the score today. And I checked it. It's like 30-point increase. Like I just like shot up to 700 points. So yeah, secured card is really, really cool. I know for some people, it's like, oh, it doesn't have very strong rewards, but several do have good reward systems. So yeah, they're definitely very helpful.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Simran. And then, the other option is just one of these starter cards, which is really great. Simran, you're getting some applauses in the in the chat or in the video. So starter credit cards are another great option as well for your first card, where if you have a little bit of credit history, let's say, your parents put you on an authorized user on one of their cards, then you're probably eligible for one of these kind of basic cards. Now, one of the caveats here is you might be very tempted and you say, okay, I got my first job, I'm earning a lot of income, and I'm going to apply for that premium rewards card, or even ones that you might not consider super premium, but even some of the Capital One cards, or, some of the Chase basic cards as well. Those require a longer length of credit, and your income doesn't actually matter very much. You still need to be building your credit, which is kind of a weird thing about credit scoring. But just make sure, you're not applying for cards that are appealing, but potentially out of reach. Give it a little bit of time and get a starter card and work your way up. And we can help you with that, Sequin. It's one of the things that we're building is, how do you actually just keep on going through different cards at different tiers? So you're making sure you're getting rewards value out of it, but you're also not applying and then getting rejected, which is the, thing that we see far too often, especially with women. And we just don't want that to happen to anyone. So I will pause here. Any questions in the chat that are coming up on this topic? Any questions on secured cards or intro cards, or applying for cards that might seem targeted towards you, but might result in a rejection? Okay, not hearing anything. Oh yeah, yay. Somebody in the chat. Okay, are offers you get in the mail a good indicator of eligibility or not? Okay, that is such a good question. Thank you for asking that. Okay, so when you apply for a credit card, 2 things are happening. There's a pre-approval, or there's I don't remember which one goes first or second, but there's kind of like a pre-approval and then there's a qualification phase. So pre-approval is much more directional. And what's kind of fun is we do a session at Sequin that's about pulling your credit report, going through it, understanding, what the different facets are. And you can see in there promotional pulls, which means any sort of issuer might be trying to see, okay, Hannah, what is your profile? And likely, are you in the range of someone who might be accepted for a product like this? And so that's how you get targeted by these mailers, right? I get 5 of them a month, right? And it's because they see my profile and they're like, directionally, you should be approved for this. But they can't legally actually approve you until you apply. So it's a decent indicator, but it's not, I would say if I had to put a number against it, I would say it's a 70% indicator that you may get accepted, but you just never know until you apply. And it's kind of this a little bit of a shot in the dark, right? And chicken and egg, where you don't know if you're going to get approved until you apply. So I guess I gave kind of a non-answer. It's a decent indicator, but it's not going to be a shoe in. So still make sure you're doing your research to make sure that, you know, you are in the range, and we're always here to help with that as well. Okay, sounds good. Cool. That was such a good question. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Okay, so here are some considerations, considerations for your first credit card, but honestly, considerations for any card that you get, right? And I can go through, spot check some of these, right? An annual fee is kind of interesting. Our team has been hard at work, putting together some credit card recommendations for our first few Sequin women who have experienced a credit score increase, they're not in debt, and we're like, okay, time to get you a better card that's more aligned with your spend. And in our questionnaire, one of the questions we ask is, do you want an annual fee? And what's interesting is that most people say no, right? And why would you? It feels kind of weird to pay for a credit card. But having built so many cards, the cards that are going to give you the most value come with an annual fee. And you just need to be able to do the math. And, in our recommendations, we put together, some of that math for you to just make sure that you are going to be using the card enough and in the right categories that the annual fee much more than pays for itself. But don't shy away from an annual fee, because the best cards with the best rewards actually have them. That being said, it is a matter of personal preference. So if you prefer not to deal with it, it's fine. But I want women to feel more comfortable, with the concept of an annual fee, because the good things are you pay for. So just make sure you're doing the math and being smart about that, and don't just rule out an annual fee just because it feels kind of weird. Let me see. Customer reviews, collateral amount. This is another question I get a lot. So on a secured card, because you are backing your own collateral, you're backing your own line of credit with collateral, they give different options. Sometimes it's totally open-ended. And they say, just put on however much you want to put on, or they'll give you some options like, $50, $99, $200, $500. And I always like to say, for a secured card, if you can, I know it's a large sum of money, but around 500 is what we recommend. And based off our Sequin method, you want to keep your balance only 10% of the total. So every $50 you spend, pay off, spend, pay off. And that number just goes down, right? If it's $99, then every $10 you're paying off, and that can be kind of cumbersome. So yeah, if you can afford, putting down $500 there, do that. If not, 200 is fine as well. Just make sure you're paying off, every $20 to keep your utilization below 10%. Does anyone have any questions on that, or are any of these, does anyone want me to double click into any of these, or, any other questions as you've been evaluating cards, anything that's come up? What's a good / bad APR? You are just chock full of great questions. So on average, so I believe as of this year, the average APR is about 26%. It is so expensive to borrow money on a credit card. And this is why I always say, if you need to borrow money, just like beg a friend or do something else, because 26% and pay that friend like 10, 15% APR, it's going to be so much. 26% is really, really high. And, borrowing money on a credit card is some of the most expensive money you're ever going to borrow. But to answer your question directly, it's about 26% on average. You see that fluctuate, a little higher, a little lower, depending on honestly how risky your profile is. And so I don't actually know what the upper limit is, but I think, somewhere in the 30s. You can see, and some other cards are more in the 12, 15%. So, I mean, if you aim for about 20, but just pay off your card on time and in full, and you won't have to worry about the APR. But it is a really great question. Oh, okay. This is actually not a dumb question. Okay. She said, maybe this is a dumb question, but what is the difference between APR and interest rates and fees? Okay, this is so good. Okay, so different categories. Fees are going to be two types on average. One will be an annual fee, right? It's something that just caught fees are fixed. They don't depend on a percentage or anything. So an annual fee, that's once a year, is how much you're gonna pay, and then for the card. And then a late fee is another type of fee, right? So if you are late, then in addition to interest that you pay, there might be some sort of late fee as well. And then another type of fee might be an overdraft fee, right? So if you are, you can use your card for different things. Like you can actually, pull, get cash out of it. Don't recommend that. The rates are really, really high, but you can in an emergency. There might be a fee there. If you overdraft in that you schedule a payment and you don't have enough money in your checking account, then that might be a fee. So fees are just fixed, right? And then APR it stands for annual percentage rate, and so that's the actual percentage on the money that you're revolving, right? So if you are carrying a balance, that's going to be the rate at which the interest gets calculated. And the devil with APRs is it usually compounds, right? So it's not just, okay, 5% at the end of the month. It's like 5% and then 5% of that the next month, and that's how you hear these really awful stories about people getting into really unmanageable credit card debt. And then the interest rate is just going to be that the pure actual rate amount. Okay, does that answer your questions?
So with with a lot of like credit cards, at least like the one that I have right now, it gave me a whole full year of like basically no annual fees or interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea how, when that goes away, like how like would I pay before the cutoff date? Like I guess I guess I feel like I'm preparing for the future in a way. I'm sure a lot of people already like know when they should pay so they don't have any interest rates, but I guess yeah, if you don't mind doing a rundown of that.
Yeah, totally. So if you get a card that's defers interest or fees for the first year, then there's a few things to take into account. So one is the annual fee is going to hit at the date that you applied a year later, but I would actually call your issuer, the whatever number is in the back of your card, give them a call and just say, when is my annual fee going to kick in? So you are either ready to pay that, or if you don't want that card anymore, you can be like, I'm going to downgrade it to a different product. So just ask them when that annual fee is going to hit, but it should be a year later. And then the second piece on the deferred interest, just see how they're calculating it. So I don't actually know because it depends on what card that you have, but some of the scary pieces of this deferred interest thing is they might charge you all of the interest that you would have owed this year at the beginning of next year. And that's like a really scary phenomenon called deferred interest. Just make sure that's not the case, and then make sure you pay your card so you don't pay that interest. But you might want to call your bank and just ask them, how are you calculating this and how much is this going to come out to? And make sure it's not deferred interest, and if it is, pay off your card immediately or as much as you can.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, no, that helps a lot. And I'm starting to notice like the dates that I have and just really like, especially with the beta, just being like conscientious of like basically like my due dates and all that before and build that habit. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, get in the habit. It's a great question. All right. Okay, anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, cool. All right. All such good questions. These are awesome. Okay, so we spent a little bit of time talking about secured cards, and Simran gave us a great rundown. I guess the last thing that we didn't add on secured cards here is a secured card really is a means to an end. You shouldn't be on a secured card for very long. At maximum, 5 to 6 months will be a great time for you to start thinking about, a different credit card. Other things to be aware of with a secured card is you are going to need to ask them for your security back. Sometimes they don't proactively do it. So make sure you get your money back at the end of it. And then the second thing that's really important is they might not automatically upgrade you to a non-secured card product, even if they say. I know some of the Discover cards are like, oh, you'll be eligible for another one, but they might not be super proactive. They're only required to check once every year. But again, you might be eligible in 6 months. Then you're leaving money on the table for the other 6. So just be really proactive about, after 6 months, just saying, okay, I think I'm ready for a different and better non-secured card, and make sure you get your security, your collateral back. Is anyone here considering getting a secured card? Is it the right fit for anyone here? I'm just curious. You can just say in the chat or raise your hand.
I've been recommended the Capital One one, even though I already have my other card. And like you mentioned, like this is a good starter card. So I even been told that they don't do a hard pull either. So yeah, at least like I feel like at least with Capital One, I didn't know that was like a known thing that they do secure cards.
Yeah. Capital One has a secured card we really love here at Sequin. It's a great card. But Cynthia, if you already have a credit card, you have credit history, right? You don't need a secured card. A secured card is not going to give you a lot of value, and you will get approved for a non-secured card. So I would recommend, take our Sequin credit card matchmaking quiz. We can help you get a different card, or just do your research, but you don't need a secured card. It's just not going to give you the value, and you're going to be, putting your money down behind it.
Awesome. Yeah, I had that kind of gut feeling, so I'm glad you confirmed that. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. All right, well, that was a great segue into this. Okay, so some other kind of tips and tricks as you think about your credit card application process. So here are some terms that we get asked about a lot at Sequin, and we just want to kind of illuminate them for you here. So one of them that we get asked about a lot is, what is a balance transfer? Basically, what a balance transfer is there's a phenomenon where if you have credit card debt, then another issuer may be willing to buy that debt and offer you a lower rate on that amount. So some cards will charge a fee if you do that. And so there might be a balance transfer fee, and just check that out. And make sure you're aware, if in the future you are in a situation where you do need a balance transfer, then you'll know, okay, if I get this card, then I may have to pay a little bit extra to do that. The second, a cash advance. I mentioned this is something you can do on your credit card if you are in a really bad situation. Again, this is super, super expensive. I don't know exactly, Tanvi, I don't want to put you on the spot, but when you were researching, do you know what that interest rate was for a cash advance?
Not off the top of my head, but I can look that up.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, so, just want to see if you knew. But yeah, it's really, really high, and it's super, super expensive. I want to say in the high 30s or 40 or something. It's just really expensive. So it's not, I would not recommend doing this, but in a pickle you could, and that's what the interest is going to be there. And yeah, TLDR, we do not recommend this, but it's just something to know. The second thing for a secured card is, after you submit your secured card application, then they'll do kind of an initial credit check for you, and then you'll need to specify, okay, this is how much collateral I want to put down. And as I mentioned before, we recommend that amount to be 500, but if, understand, obviously, if you can't put all of that down, then, 200 is just fine. And then lastly, with the secured card, sometimes it takes a little bit of time, almost up to 6 weeks, for the bank to actually approve you. We always recommend just calling the customer service line, and they can do it the next day, basically, if it takes a while. But I think Simran, it took your card a little while to come in, right?
Yeah, but like I applied during the holiday season. I think it was like in December, like right after Thanksgiving. So like in December and like the New Year, like there was Christmas, the New Year. Yeah, it took some time. It was pretty intense.
Yeah. So sometimes it can take a little bit of time for your card to come in. So if it's taking a while, again, I always like to just call my bank and ask them, like, can I have this sooner? And if even for regular credit cards, non-secured credit cards, when you're applying, I always just say, like, can you expedite this? And they do, because obviously it's in their best interest for you to start using your card immediately as well. So it's a win-win. Just call them and just say, can you expedite this for free? They might at first say, oh, you could pay to have it expedited. Just say, oh, I don't want to, and then they'll just send it, which has worked for me before. So I'll pause on this. Anyone have any questions on either a secured card application or anything that you've seen on a card application as you've gone through, where you might maybe have some questions? We have some more tips coming up, but just figured I'd pause here.
Yeah, to your earlier point from I just wanted to call out, so for cash advances, there is a fee. So you have a fee, and then on top of that, you pay APR, like an interest amount on the actual amount you took out. So for the Capital One secured card, it's about 23%, so pretty comparable to the balance APR. And the fee is not too much. It's $10 or 3%, but just a heads up, it's expensive. It's actually more than your balance APR. So not the best option.
Cool. Okay, so this is really an interesting topic. So I have walked through credit card applications with hundreds of women now, and I've also done it with many men as well. And what is always surprising to me is you have to put in your income in the card application field. And what I see with men is they always overestimate. And what I see with women is we underestimate our income in these applications. And what I want each of you to know and to like yell from the rooftops is just add any income you have access to. So if you are still being supported by your parents, for example, just put that income. So it shouldn't just be, oh, I'm making X dollars on my own, but any income you have access to. This also includes student loans, scholarships, alimony, if any of you, are in that situation, but literally any income you have, throw it in, put your absolute best foot forward. Don't lie, of course, but have, as much money as you can, just put the highest amount that you can put without lying, of course. And so, to actually get to that number, just see, how much money you have access to, if you have on a monthly basis, just annualize it. And then, if you have investments as well, right? Think through the value of those investments. And we mentioned scholarships too. So don't do this. Don't underestimate. It's really, really important to be able to put your entire income, because it's one of the factors they're going to take into account when they're thinking about whether to approve you, what interest rate they should give you, how much credit they should give you. So don't shy away from this number. Okay. And lastly, some of the here are some questions in the chat. Okay, how do you count investments, just their value the day you apply? I assume this is an estimate. Thanvi, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, it's just an estimate. So if you are investing in stocks, just the day's value or whatever you remember as the last value. The goal is just, if you have 5K like in your brokerage account, you should reflect that in your income or any other investments that you have. I'm trying to think what are other good examples, Brenda. But yeah, just estimate.
So is this more of like a net worth, like everything you have at the time, or is it like you're just like what you're making, or like, yeah, I guess I thought it was just income, but maybe I got
No, this is your, what is, but I think it's liquid assets, right, Bendy? I assume it's not every asset.
Yeah, it's any money you would have access to. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, maybe like your car value doesn't count, right? Or your house value, but any money that you can liquidate should be counted. So we had one woman, for example, who had a side hustle on Etsy, and she didn't think to include that in her income. But you know, it should not just be your one job. It's any money you have access to. Hope that helps.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Thanks, Funvi, for chiming in. There's another question in the chat. Does upgrading count as closing the secured card? I believe so, but that doesn't show as a closed account or anything on your credit history. I don't believe. But let me double check that for you, Hannah Lily. Are you in our Slack? Are you in our Slack channel? Okay. Simran, if you wouldn't mind just throwing the link to the Slack in the chat. Yeah. So join us there, Hannah. We'll get you the answer, I promise, and tag you. I just don't want to give you the wrong information. That's a great question. Okay. And so some kind of final words before you apply for a new card. I always like to go through this mental checklist, especially when I'm talking to the women at Sequin and they're asking me questions. This is the checklist I go through in my head. So I say, 1, have you recently applied for or opened any new credit cards or lines of credit? And if that has happened in the last 3-4 months, I just recommend waiting. Just wait because too many hard pulls are going to show up as negative on your credit history and then on your credit report and your credit score. And you might either get worse terms on the credit or you might get flat out rejected, which we hate to see here. So that's not going to happen to you all. Of course, what is your current credit score? So just make sure you're in the right range of what they're asking for. It's just really important to keep on preaching this. We just, getting into credit card debt is such a slippery slope. And I've spoken with so many women who are kind of on the other side of this, where they're just in a really bad situation. And, we don't want to see that happen to any of you all. So just, think about what is your plan to pay off your debt before you start to seek more lines of credit. And then, how many cards do you have, right? Or how many credit vehicles do you have? And, I know earlier in this discussion today, we talked about what's the right number of cards. It's really just like at least one, but however many you can manage is that right answer. So if you're like, hey, if I have another line of credit, it's going to be really hard for me to manage, don't get the other line of credit. All right, what's this? Okay, and yeah, just a few more tenets. Use your credit card like a debit card, pay it off on time and in full. Don't pay interest. Sign up for Sequin in our app so we can help you manage your, oh, it's so cute, Simran. Help you manage your credit and optimize your score. And then, of course, pay it forward, share Sequin with women We are, as I mentioned, in a private beta with about 130 women now, and we're trying to keep it close, friends and family. But if there are any, amazing women in your life who you think could really benefit from learning about credit, learning how to manage their credit, are thinking about maybe their next credit products and what's best for them, then Sequin would be a really great fit. So make sure you, add them, just DM us in Slack. There's a referral in the app. And, every week we set out feedback forms as well. So you can refer in there too. All right. So we have our credit card matchmaking quiz here. If you're interested, we're starting to pilot some of those this week. We're really excited about that. But, in our next round, as we do this, we'd love to just get your, create a personalized match for you as well. And here's some FAQs. I know I've been talking for a while and I know we have about 10 minutes left. Are any of these questions interesting to anyone. If there are a few that we want to spot pick, I'm happy to talk through them, or honestly just talk through anything else in our last 10 minutes. Okay, I'm opening up the chat. The SSN question. Okay, which one is that? Oh, is the application process secure? Should I provide things like my SSN? Yeah, so you know, any institution that is making a lending decision on you has to go through different types of approvals, and you know, your SSN is of course such a key piece in your identity. So make sure you're not putting that places willy-nilly. But if there is, you know, a recognizable brand, or they're partnered with Visa or something like that, it's probably safe. And you do need to put in your SSN so they can run a credit check on you. And that process, I guess, just for a little bit of industry insight. So there's two things they need to pass: KYC and AML. KYC is know your customer. And so that's why that SSN comes in. You know, what's their profile? Do they have a criminal record? Like any of those kind of pieces, right? And then AML is anti-money laundering. So just make sure that you're not a criminal, basically, is the other piece as well. So that's why they need your SSN to you know, make sure that you are a good credit person to lend credit to. Okay, I see another request, the question about a different bank provider. Okay, can I open a credit card with a different provider than my debit card? Yeah, so we get that question a lot, and the answer is totally yes. Your debit card and your credit card have literally nothing at all to do with one another. And actually, maybe I'm wrong, but I have never seen there be any sort of benefit to applying for a credit card with the same bank that has issued your debit card. And feel free, if anyone, if I am wrong, if anyone has seen that, feel free to let me know, but I personally have not seen it. So yeah, so just find the right credit card for you. It doesn't matter which bank it's with. You will be able to link your checking account, your direct deposit account to that card, so you can set up your payments. So there's no benefit to that, or harm, right? If it's the right card for you, then just choose that card. Any other requests from this list? Let me see if there's any ones that I've heard a lot of questions about. Okay, so I think we all know this one. Does applying for a credit card impact my credit score? Yes. What should I do if I get rejected? That is actually a really, really good question. So if you get rejected, I would say a few things. One is, don't go and reapply, because that's going to be another hard pull on your account. So wait a few months. But the second thing that's kind of an interesting pro tip is, and actually this happened to me, and my boss at the time, who was the head of all credit cards, gave me this tip, and I was able to get the card that I wanted using this tip. So when I was applying for the Chase Sapphire Reserve, I got rejected, and I had a Chase Sapphire Preferred, which is in the same portfolio, but a lower kind of tiered card, easier to get access to, lower annual fee. And so what had happened was Chase couldn't approve me for the entire line of credit that their minimum requirements of credit that they need to be able to give you. And with the Chase Sapphire Reserve, it was 20,000. And because I had already had the preferred, then and I think I had a credit line of like 10,000 or something on that, then they just weren't able. My debt to income ratio, which is basically, you know, how much debt you have over your income, that was too high and out of whack, and Chase couldn't give me that you know, the requisite amount to approve me. And so what I did was I called Chase and I said, can you transfer my credit line from the Chase Sapphire Preferred onto the Reserve, and will that solve the problem? And they said, yes, that'll solve the problem. And then in that way, I was able to get approved for the card that I wanted. So it's also worth, after you get rejected, calling the issuer and saying, you know, was this a debt to income ratio issue? Is there any way, if you have another credit card with that bank, is there a way to transfer some of that credit line onto the other card to be able to get approved for it? Yeah, so that was kind of an interesting tip. But for the average person, for the average rejection, wait a few months and find a card that's actually, you know, within your score range, and also keep on working towards building your credit with a service like Sequin, right? And get your score up to where you need to be for that card that you want. Okay, transfer from what to what? Oh, okay, let me know if I'm answering your question, but if you have a credit card with the credit card issuer already, and you're trying to get another card with that issuer and you get rejected, you can call that issuer, let's say it's Chase, for example, and say, can I transfer some of the credit line from my existing card with you in order to get approved for the other card that I'm trying to seek from you? Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah. So it would lower your credit line on your existing card and just transfer that credit line onto the new card. It doesn't, was that a statement? But then it lowers the amount you need on the other card. Yeah, that's the logic. They need to give you a minimum. They need to be able to extend you a minimum amount of credit. And if they can't approve you for that, then you get rejected. But then you can transfer, you know, the line from another card onto this one. Cool. All right. So 2 minutes left. Anyone have one last question? I think we have time for one more. It can be about this or anything else. If anyone needs help with the application or needs help, you know, evaluating cards, feel free to DM me or Simran or Thanvi in the Slack, and we can help you out. And, you know, we're always here. So just let us know how we can help. But especially for those who are applying for their first card, if you need help walking through it or have any questions, we're totally here for you. So I hope this was helpful. It's always so much fun. So please invite your friends and make sure you are on our Sequin app if you aren't there already. Simran, do you mind throwing the link in the chat for them in case they need that? Awesome. Cool. Thank you all so much for your questions. It's fun learning something new. And I owe you a question as to does upgrading your secured card count as closing your account? That was a really, really great question. All right. Well, thank you again for another successful Power Hour, and we will see you next week around this time. And great to see some new faces. Aw, the heart reactions are so fun. All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Yay, we did it.
Yay.
Stop sharing. That was fun. They had like some really good questions.